Hi, my name is JL and I'm a master's student at Hyper Island. I've conducted many interviews, read lots of journal articles, and received insider tips from industry practitioners at top companies such as IDEO and Astro. So today I'm going to share my wealth of knowledge with you about how to be a terrible interviewer. Did I say a terrible interviewer? I mean, how bad could the interview possibly be? It's just a normal conversation between two human beings. Or is it? Apparently not. Through an online survey, many people shared with me their greatest fear about conducting an interview. They are afraid of talking to the wrong person and not getting the right insights. They are afraid of asking questions that the interviewee don't really understand. And they're also afraid of forgetting to ask follow-up questions like why this, why that, and not getting the insights that they need at the end of the interview. So, as you can see, being an interviewer is clearly more than just having a random conversation with your neighbor. You need to plan and prepare properly to ensure that you get the right insights out of the interview. For the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some tips, so listen very carefully. You might not become the best interviewer in the world, but you will at least not be a bad interviewer. Interviews is one way of doing human-centered research for a design process. It is important to be user-centric so that you understand the user's needs and not design something based on your own assumptions and experiences. So you need to talk to people. Of course, when you do an online survey via SurveyMonkey, you can reach out to perhaps 100 people over just a week. And in a week, you could probably just do like 2 or 3 interviews. But interviews is better than doing online surveys because you get to observe the human behavior and ask more in-depth questions than a survey. There are 3 types of interview. 1, an exploratory interview. 2, a structured interview. And 3, a highly structured interview. So for an exploratory interview, there is no structure. You go into an interview with just the intention of exploring 1 or 2 topics, and you can ask any questions you want based on what you hear from the interviewee. You ask the questions accordingly. So the advantage of doing this is that you can cover a wide area of subjects in that topic, but there's one big disadvantage whereby you are unable to compare different interview results because for each interview that is exploratory, you're asking very different questions. The next type of interview is a structured interview. So you go into this interview with some key questions that you like to ask, and as you hear the interviewee's responses, you will ask follow-up questions like how do you do this, how do you do that, why, and so on and so forth. But you keep to a very structured kind of process to make sure that you cover key topics, key questions, so that when you have multiple interviews, you are able to compare the results. Lastly, when we talk about a highly structured interview, it's not flexible. You have to follow the script very strictly so that when you have all the interviews, you can compare the interview results very well. And during the interview, the questions that you ask tend to be very close-ended. For example, do you like this service? Yes or no? How would you rate this particular experience from 1 to 5? So it's very structured and closed. So the disadvantage of doing this is that you will not be able to get too much depth out of the interview. So knowing that there are 3 types of interview, choose the one that is best for the design challenge and the purpose of the research you're trying to conduct. For example, if you're very early on in the design process, you would like to explore in a very wide way about a particular topic, then choose an exploratory interview, like perhaps do 1 or 2 of them, which will help to guide your subsequent research. So after that, you can move into like a structured interview with more structure and some space to explore around it. So now we move and talk about the interview process. The first step is to recruit interviewees. So you first need to know who is your target audience. What kind of people are you trying to talk to? They belong to an age range of 18 to 34, female, and with a very high earning power? Or are they mostly elderly males who are trying to talk to? So after you know who is your target audience, look at your existing contacts, look at your network of friends, and try to see if you can select the right people from there. If not, what you could do is to engage a commercial recruiter to help find the kind of right people that you want to talk to. So common pitfalls of the process of recruiting is you get the wrong person, so make sure you find the right person to talk to, and make sure you reconfirm the attendance of the interviewees before the interview starts so that you don't have too many no-shows. And this should help you to get off to a right start. So now we talk about what are the things that you like to bring to interview. So first, the most important thing is to bring a discussion guide. So the discussion guide contains some questions about what you like to ask during the interview, and it also contains some timings to help you keep track of how much time you want to spend on introducing yourself, how much time you like to spend on warming up and on asking general questions. And when you get into detailed questions, you can use the discussion guide to give a prompt so that you don't run out of time and give some space for you to wrap up. Second thing that you might to bring to the interview would be a consent form. Get permission from your interviewee to do the interview, and this would be the documentation of the permission. Bring someone along with you to be your note taker so that you can focus on having a proper conversation with the interview. And lastly is to bring your mobile phone, set it to silent mode, but use this to keep track of time as well as to record audio of the interview, and use this to take a picture of your interview. Some things not to bring would be like your iPad or your computer, because if you use this during the interview, it kind of create a physical barrier between you and the interviewee. So this will not put the interviewee at ease. So during the interview, make sure you are actively listening to what the interviewee is trying to say. So there are 5 key points that you want to look out for when listening to the interviewee. First would be the problems that they highlight, any obstacles that they face, observations that you have during the interview, any user needs they identify, and quotable quotes that you could use for presentation later on. So as I mentioned earlier, take lots of notes for you to make sense of what happened during the interview, and focus on timekeeping so that you don't run out of time to cover the areas that you would like to talk about. At the end of the interview, say thank you, leave your contact details, and make sure you have the consent form signed, and take a picture of the interviewee before you go. Some common interviewing problems that people face is the interviewee might not be able to answer your questions, but they kind of give you some funny answer. So look out for moments like this, make observations, and ask clarifying questions if you have some doubts about their answer. And the next one would be the interview might give you one-worded answer because they are very nervous. So be prepared to give them some help, like ask prompting questions like, what do you think about this? Would you like to elaborate further on that? So that they can have some time to think about it. After the interview ends, take a moment to reflect. Think about how you conducted the interview. Were there too many leading questions that you asked? Like, for example, most people say this. Do you think that is true? Some things like this. So you would like to eliminate this kind of questions. And step back from the interview and think, are there other environmental factors such as the building, the space, was it too noisy? Would you like to change the venue next time around? So analyze your interview process before you conduct the next interviews so that you can do things better. So remember that interviewees have fears too. Most of them don't get interviewed too often, so they are afraid of being unprepared, of saying the wrong thing to you, and they're also afraid that they'll get confusing questions from you. So let's make life easier for both the interviewee and yourself so that everyone gets a good experience out of this. Don't be a bad interviewer. Thank you.